I was listening to a financial podcast, and a social worker had called in, and she basically stated she was struggling with her finances and her life, and she was looking for direction. And it was ironic because a social worker kind of gets other people's life together or helps them, and so she needs help herself. And it sparked something in me because on the same podcast, I've also heard like accountants call in for financial advice, right? It's like, that's ironic. You're an accountant. That's what you do as a profession, but yet you need financial advice. It's like, what happens when people go to you for that? Are you giving them good advice? And then the final example, and then I want to talk about it. The final example is, when you have a psychologist or a nurse, one of those two things, a psychologist like trying to, a psychologist going to therapy, right? Sometimes I've noticed people that study psychology, they're trying to really figure out themselves, nothing wrong with that, and then like a nurse that smokes cigarettes and doesn't eat healthy, like she's there to help you get healthier, but she herself may not be healthy. So these examples of people in a profession that go to other people to help them understand their profession. Is that a bad thing? Well, when you start to think it's a totally bad thing, look at yourself, right? Like if you were a plumber, I'm sure there's times in your life where you went to another plumber for help. So it's not all negative because we have to always evaluate ourselves. When we look at other people, and you could say judging, but sometimes you're not judging, you're evaluating. Always remember to put yourselves in their shoes and make it a parallel to your life. Like you may not be an accountant or a social worker going for help, but you may be a plumber asking another plumber how to do work, right? So be a fair evaluator by evaluating yourself. So then you say, okay, that kind of makes sense then if I check myself and I look at that. But also part of this message is to realize that no one has it all together, and you really got to look inward and you really got to study and work on yourself, okay? Because if you don't, what's going to happen is you're going to be someone who volunteers or someone who is in a position and you're not taking care of your own house, right? Like there's a scripture that says, how can you be a leader if you can't manage your own house? It's like, and when I say manage your own house, I'm not saying like yell at your kids, be a strict parent, clean your house. No, I'm saying like when you manage your house, you have a healthy relationship with the people in your house. You have a healthy understanding of finances. You have a healthy organization within your household, right? Physically, mentally, emotionally, all these things, comprehensive, not just spiritual or whatever, not just financial. And so the message in this video is you will run across this in life. So the first thing is don't be too negative about it, because you'll have to look at yourself. Whatever profession you're in, there's times where you need to ask other people in your profession for help, especially when you're young and developing, but even throughout times. Second is don't take anyone's thing as gospel. Meaning, as far as like, don't take anyone's thing as absolute truth. But don't be too negative. Like, don't forget, a doctor helped you at one time. The hospital helped you at one time. Like some people, they become so, which I'm a very much try to be as natural as possible, but I also acknowledge science and doctors, because some people, they went to the emergency room and the emergency room saved their life, but they're anti-medicine, they're anti-doctor, they're anti-science. You have to be fair. But you do, after you're fair, then you also still have to do your own research, verify, and work on yourself. Don't be someone who is in a position where you're just not working on yourself. That means you got to take time for yourself. You got to put effort. Can't be lazy. It's like, if you're trying to figure out your life, just look at the mirror and say, am I too lazy? Because a big part of life is getting out of bed. Big part of life is keeping it moving, right? And we're all different, right? So everyone has different things. Like I may like things a little bit sloppier in certain areas, but I'm very meticulous in other areas, right? But overall, I put a lot of effort into developing myself and living a healthy, positive life as best I can, okay? So, but everyone's different. You got to figure out that for you. But this is just something that's a little bit ironic. So just remember that when you go to therapy. And just remember, when someone's in therapy for 10, 20 years, it's like Someone goes to church for 10, 20 years, that's great, but the whole point of going is to take that information, take those resources, and then work on yourself during the week, or work on yourself when you leave the hospital, right? Like if you leave the emergency room, I remember I went to the emergency room. When you leave it, don't just take the medicine and follow up, with your doctors. You should, but you also may have to change your diet. You also may have to change your habits, right? And that's the hard part. You got to work on yourself, right? And a big part of self-care is not being lazy on working on yourself. Not cosmetically, right? Because sometimes I may appear like a bum, okay? But overall, I have my life together to a certain degree. I could be broken at any time, right? And some people may be totally put together, but their life's in shambles. So this is not about a cosmetic exterior, okay? And that's fine if you want that. I don't want to say anything negative about them. That's positive, right? But I just want to say self-care is developing yourself inward and then out, however you want to be it outward. But definitely inward, because that's your foundation, right? And so, that's the basic message. I hope it helped. If it did, click the thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not. Thank you for watching.